Right then. What do you want to talk about, Craig?
Well, Ian's had some questions. I think we posted a few days ago that we're going to do this, and he has been sent some questions. So why don't we start with those?
We rattle through those. Yeah, I got sent a few on a couple on email and a couple on private message. So we'll just go through them. We'll start with the ones that are directed mostly towards you, I guess. Firstly, I think I know the answer to this one, and it's that there's only 24 hours in the day. But what has happened to Run Research Junkie from a Run Research Junkie fan?
Okay, well, let me to answer that. Let me just share my screen for those who bear with us. This is technically, hopefully this has worked. Hopefully you can see it. The Run Research Junkie is one of my blogs where I write about stuff, and my last post on that was on September the 20th, September the 2nd. So there's only, as Ian said, there's only 24 hours in a day. I have a lot of stuff I want to write about. I've got several, what I think extremely important blog posts, debunking stuff written in my head. It's just physically finding time to do it. But to illustrate that further, I think many of you have seen this. God put me on this earth to accomplish a certain number of things. Right now, I'm so far behind, I will never die. That's what's happened to Run Research Junkie. There is only so many hours in a day. It's still there. It's still live. It's still getting a reasonable amount of traffic. I've been in bed for the last 2 days with man flu. So, it's just time.
I suspected that was the case. Right. Another one, this was actually to both of us, but I suspect more directed at you again. Do you have any speaking commitments next year? Where can people hear you? Conferences or indeed boot camps and things?
Well, when it comes to boot camps, I've got a little tired of doing them. I mean, the travel was getting harder and harder. So that's why I've literally put the whole thing online now. There is a possibility I'll be doing 2 boot camps, one in Portugal, maybe around April, and one in Ireland, which is still being talked about. They might be the only 2 I'll actually get to do next year. And there's also a conference in Naples I'll be at April next year as well, I think. The travel gets you, after years and years of it, the travel gets you down. So I don't actively try to do too many.
Everywhere's a long way when you're in Australia, isn't it? I'm just in the process of confirming some myself. I think April will be busy, possibly Ireland as well, Northern Ireland. That's a TBC, and certainly Finland.
Finland.
I'm kind of excited about. I've never been to Finland before, so looking forward to that. And I think that's probably it at the moment. I've just had a message from from Chris Bishop. He's just sent me a text saying, "I wake up to your face." What time?
Yeah.
What time is it there? Is it 7 a.m.?
7:08. I think Chris is a half an hour behind. They're in Adelaide. But what he's saying is the one of the TV breakfast shows over here is called the Today Show, and they ring one lucky viewer every morning, but you have to answer your phone. I wake up with today. So Chris is referring to I wake up with you. Hey, Chris.
Yeah. Good to see. Oh, yeah, he's a good man. But I'm pleased to say that it's the first time he's ever woken up to my face, and hopefully for him the last. Hopefully for him the last. Right, let's get the next question up. It was about supination resistance, which I guess, and it's got several parts to it. I guess I'd like to think between us we can field most questions on supination resistance. But a fairly interesting point, which is obviously you guys at La Trobe published your 3 papers 2003.
Yeah.
And then I published my paper 2010. And I think there's been one other paper that kind of called its validity into question since. But really only 4 or 5 papers and nothing for the last few years. So the question really was, has it all died down? Where are we going with it? As I'm sure you know, and you've been in contact with him as well, Sean McBride over in the US is doing some work on it at the moment. So that's kind of exciting. But from your perspective, I mean, clearly we don't know everything we need to or want to know about it. There's still work to be done. I guess the question is, where's that work coming from now, do you think?
Well, yeah, again, I find it quite disappointing because I think, as you know, I think it's an extremely important clinical test. It's it's a risk. It's allegedly a risk factor for a lot of things. It's just no one seems to be taking it and running with it now, apart from Sean, and I obviously look forward to his work, and he has been in touch with me. But an example, I was just chatting to someone the other day about this, that allegedly, a very low supination resistance is a risk factor for a lateral ankle sprain. And I think we see those patients clinically who sprain their ankles a lot have very low supination resistance. But when you delve into the literature on the risk factors for lateral ankle sprains, no one even looked at supination resistance to see if it was a risk factor or not. Like, it's not being incorporated into the risk factor studies, just ignoring some of the reliability issues, which I think can be dealt with through other means. So again, it's just very, very disappointing. You look at the abstracts for those ankle injury research retreats, and the supination resistance word doesn't even get mentioned or come up. And mind you, I've never been to one, so yeah, it's all those kinds of issues. And I just see it, supination resistance is high, you need a harder orthotic. If it's low, you don't. It's intuitive. It just doesn't seem to be being factored into. Having said that, pretty much everyone I talk to uses it clinically. So regardless of where the research is heading, it's being extremely widely used clinically. It's put into practice. It's fairly common, fairly standard usage, I would have thought by now. So yeah, I don't know how you feel.
What's your experience? In the UK, I think within podiatry, I think everyone is at the very least aware of it, and whether they use it or find value in it is possibly individual. I would say outside of podiatry, my expectation had been that it wasn't particularly well known or understood or utilised. I don't know if that is echoed in Australia, but I had a really positive experience a couple of weeks ago when I was at a football club, talking to the medical team, and a very sharp medical team, and one of the sports therapists in the medical team, who's there as an intern, said that he was being taught the supination resistance test on his sports therapy degree, which I was very, very probably too visibly excited by it. I think it freaked him out a little bit, but I feel like it is. And we don't want to get carried away, as we say. We see value in it, but we need to try and get that data. I mean, I'm aware of the data I still refer to the data that you have got that's unpublished about your sort of group of people with tib post problems who had a very high supination resistance and your ankle sprains. And I know that Simon Spooner has got some great stuff on his jig, which definitely is probably better than is definitely better than both of ours in regard to looking at how supination resistance changes when the frontal plane angulation of the surface under the rear foot is. So I feel like there's data out there that people aren't aware of as well.
Oh yeah, I'm remiss. I know we should publish that, and maybe one day we will. But yeah, but again, that's cross sectional. It's not an effective risk factor study, but you have to start somewhere. So, but again, it has its knockers, and I just question what people who knock it really know about it. I mean, I caught a comment on Twitter a few weeks ago from someone who you and I both know, pointing out that Kevin Kirby's axis variation stuff has no clinical applications whatsoever. And I thought, well, what do you actually know about that? You know what I mean? It was an extraordinary comment, but I know how much that person knows about that topic. So obviously they're quite clueless about it, but I think you know who I'm talking about.
I think I do. I think when you're questioning, physics, I switch off straight away if someone starts questioning physics. What's our Bishop's still saying? Bishop wants us to Chris Bishop's just replied to me. He wants me to discuss something with you in a minute, which we will. I promise. Another question here, a bit more non-clinical, is there anyone you currently follow on social media, Facebook, Twitter, either, who is really generating good content, who you feel is a must follow for other clinicians out there, sort of an account that you can really kind of get some good content from on an almost daily basis?
I would have to say there is no one person. In fact, how about this? My next post on Run Research Junkie will be a list of those that I think people should follow. I mean, no one stands out as the one. I think there's probably a dozen that are worth following, and maybe I'll rack my brains and I'll list them. I have a policy on my Twitter account is I don't follow more than 100 people. You can't manage it. And even at 100, that's getting too many. And obviously a lot of those don't post very often, but every time I follow someone new, I try and delete a couple more because you've got to keep it manageable. Any more than that, you're going to be on it all day. But I'm enjoying Adam Meakin's stuff at the moment. And I think you laughed, you know why. I'm not necessarily agreeing with everything he's saying, but it's very entertaining. And I share a lot of stuff, so people who follow me know who I'm talking about. But there's a good 20 people that are well worth following, and maybe I'll do a blog post on who's worth following. I saw a blog post recently in a physiotherapy blog. The 20 people are worth following in physiotherapy. I mean, it was I followed a few of them, but it's maybe it's time we did one as well. So watch the space.
Definitely. Well, firstly, I'm going to hold you to that, obviously, and secondly, I think it's important that you don't just follow people you agree with. Otherwise, you've got this sort of echo chamber of just that's completely void of challenge. So I actively follow a couple of people who I regularly disagree with their opinions. I think that's a healthy thing. The one I wanted to put out there, who I haven't been following for ages, actually, only a few months, is Dr. Jared Hall, who is I believe he's a physical therapist in the US. Jared, spelt Jarod, and Hall as it sounds, and he puts out some cracking content, some really good videos, and I'm kind of a bit obsessed with understanding Payne at the moment, and I can't stress enough how much he's worth a follow to people if that floats your boat as well. That's the one I'd say to that. So shall we come to Bish's? No, we'll leave Bish's comment for now because that's going to get
making me nervous what you might have asked.
So it's not. He's just he's just being a classic Aussie, just staring, isn't he? Done that. So there was a comment on UK Podiatry, a Facebook group today, which I believe you're a member of, aren't you?
Yeah, but
are you a member of that? Yeah. But actually, it happened in the last 7-8 hours, so it's probably overnight for you.
I've been asleep for the last 7 or 8 hours.
It generated. Yeah, good. It generated, I thought, some really interesting points, and it was someone asking for an opinion on whether they needed a treadmill to perform a biomechanical assessment. I don't know. I assumed they were in a position where they were setting up their own clinic and they're thinking about where to invest their money. That's an assumption on my part, but it actually, generated some quite good points, with some people saying yes, I think you probably should, and other people saying pretty much flat out no, you don't need it, and then obviously the ultimate discussion became about the age-old overground versus treadmill movement. So I guess and your name was actually mentioned in the thread because of I think a post that you'd written about it, and I know there's a good chapter on it in your boot camp as well. Yeah. So I just thought it would be worth putting it out there for people who perhaps haven't yet signed up to your boot camp.
Yeah, no, I do have a whole section on the online boot camp on that. It's just a shame I'm on a different computer now. I could have brought up the PowerPoint and just illustrated a few points. But one thing, whether you do or don't do it, the point I keep hammering home is if you do it, does what you do have the potential to alter the treatment? And if doing a treadmill gait analysis doesn't have the potential to alter your treatment, well, you don't do it. I mean, it's not worth the effort. But if you do it, and I take into account the differences between overground and treadmill running, they're different. But at the end of the day, what do you see in a treadmill gait analysis that has the potential to alter your treatment? And there are things that I look for when I use a slow motion video replay on a treadmill that has the potential to alter my treatment. And it's not things about how pronated the foot is or anything like that. That's not going to change what you do in your treatment or not. There are other things you look for. I like from behind. I like to look, where's the first met head from behind after the heels come off the ground. To me, that if that's off the ground, you need to get it down to the ground. So that has the potential to alter my treatment. So my advice is, well, yes, there are things you look for, but you don't waste your time looking for things that don't have the potential to alter your treatment. And the other point I sort of often crack jokes about, it's a lot easier to convince people to part with money after you've done a video gait analysis. And you've got to question your ethics because you've done a video gait analysis. It's helped you get some money out of someone for doing it, but has it altered your treatment? And I used to get quite concerned about that because I would assess someone, do my workup, whatever. I pretty much decided what sort of intervention they needed. Then I'd do the gait analysis, so it wasn't actually changing my decision-making process or what I was going to recommend or advise. So that became somewhat problematic for me, and I struggled with that for quite a while. But then I started looking, well, what am I doing on the treadmill? Going in and specifically looking for those things that might have the potential to change the treatment. And I've tried to apply that philosophy and principle to everything. Muscle testing, whatever. If I'm going to do that, has it got the potential to change my treatment? So that would be my opinion on the treadmills in the clinic, the abridged version.
I think what you say is an interesting point about getting people to part with their money, because if we don't often look at it from the patient or the athlete's point of view, but there is a sense of theatre to putting someone on a treadmill and pointing a camera at them, and it's theatre that they get almost everywhere now in the running stores. A couple of places in London have got, like Nike Town off Oxford Street has an MAR system, £11,000 worth, and rightly or wrongly, of course, people would potentially believe they're getting a better service from there because they're being subjected to this kit. We all know that the magic is in the interpretation, but obviously the lay population don't know that. So there's a definite sense of theatre, which I don't think you can downplay. The point I made, and it was off the back of someone sort of disparaging treadmill and sort of saying there's a huge difference between treadmill and overground. You move differently, therefore you're not capturing what someone at then most natural. Therefore, you shouldn't use a treadmill. And the point I find fascinating is that we would assume that looking at them on up and down a corridor would be them at their most natural, when there may be, I've seen someone walking up and down a corridor in a GP practice before, and essentially it was the waiting room. There were chairs down the side, and the next 2-3 patients were watching them, and I refuse to believe that would be any more natural than someone on a treadmill. So I think
it's a shame.
I think it's
a shame I can't bring up my PowerPoint because if you look at, say, all the kinematic parameters across a whole lot of different studies that looked at overground to treadmill, a lot of the parameters are the same, and some are different, and some are the same after several minutes of being acclimatized. So to blanketly say it's just so different, it's of no use is wrong. I think I
recall a paper saying, was it 12 minutes? Once you're on
7 or 8 minutes, yeah. But in my PowerPoint, I have that study that showed that the kinematic parameters were pretty damn close. And again, you see research that's published on runners using treadmills versus overground. It's a group of people will automatically dismiss that study because it was on treadmills, but that's usually because they just don't like the results of the study. if the study confirmed their worldview, they'd think it was a great study and the treadmill doesn't matter. But to me, with research, it just comes back, what's the research question? What's the parameter under investigation? What are the differences in that parameter between overground and treadmill? And in a lot of cases, that kinematic parameter, overground treadmill, may be pretty similar, or it may not be. So anyone who blanketly dismisses one over the other is just being silly. It's what's the research question, what's the parameter under investigation, and going back to what we said before, what's the clinical usefulness of us to actually alter the intervention. And I definitely see things on a treadmill that alter the intervention. So yeah.
And I think we need to be mindful that if they've come to see us, they probably have got some level of pain or sensitivity. So maybe all we are learning is the way they move while they're currently sensitive. And I keep meaning to write something on the whole raft of psychological effects that apply in such a contrived environment. The Hawthorne effect, and the observer expectancy effect, the subject expectancy effect. So I think there's a lot going on, and that probably brings us into talking about what Bish has had a little poke, a dare, shall we say? And he has dared us to discuss 3D gait. Do you know the background? Do you know?
Yes,
why
I know.
Yeah. So I mean, just in case anyone's not conscious of the background to that, I'll give it to them quickly. I wrote a blog essentially back at the end of September about 2D versus 3D, and it was essentially a response to a blog written by a 3D company, which I took exception to a couple of points. So I'd like to think I wrote this blog in a rather professional response kind of manner. I certainly intended it to be that way. I didn't intend it to feel like I was, firing shots or anything. And foolishly, I posted it 2-3 days before I went to Ireland to a conference, and this particular company were one of the sponsors of the conference, and a very good friend of mine who well, Mr. Trevor Pryor. Obviously, we had a beer and had a chat about it as well, and it was all good. And Bish, who again dropped me a message about it and gave me his thoughts on it as well, and he's actually agreed. He may not remember to doing this, but he agreed to write a response to my blog, and I would then publish it on my blog. And I don't know whether he's still working on that, so maybe you could let us know how that's going, Bish. But shall we discuss 2D versus 3D? Let's get your take on it.
My answer is exactly the same as what I said before. Does it have the potential to alter the intervention? It's like, I've sent people off for it, not many, because I don't have great access to it here, but it's not that. I tell you what, why don't we do this next week and get Chris on as a third panelist? But I have nothing against it. I just keep saying, what is the potential of it to alter the treatment? And in some cases, yes, it does, but I think it's going to be more applicable in gait retraining situations than orthotic decision making. There's nothing wrong with it. Again, it's just, I'm not going to keep repeating, can it alter the treatment? I just keep coming back to that bottom line.
Yeah, I don't think I've got anything to add that I didn't write in the blog already. Let's try and. I don't know about next week because I'm in Liverpool for the Society Conference, but let's do one with if Bish is up for it.
Yeah, but rather than 2 heads on the screen, we can have 3 or 4.
Yeah. Maybe we should. Maybe we should do that. That's not perhaps that's not a bad idea. Right. I don't think we've got anything left to talk about that with regards to the things I was messaged. No, we haven't. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? I don't know how long.
I think we've gone for long enough. We have here's Monica. Wave, Monica. Monica's getting ready for school. She's just woken up.
I think you're about to go. Like the did you see the BBC correspondent whose kid's photo?
I did. Yeah, that went all over the place. Yeah, everyone saw that.
I think Monica's just ensured that we might go viral here.
Yeah, I'll just get the other one. Here's Steffi. You wave. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's wind up there. I think we've talked for long enough.